the same resistance. In Louisiana, we formed a Loy La Vie camp to stop Bayou Bridge, just like we stood in Standing Rock. But instead of listening to the people, the state responded with laws designed to criminalize our movement. The criminal infrastructure law that we heard today at the hearing is an attack on our rights. In 2018, the oil and gas industry worked behind closed doors to pass an amendment to Louisiana's critical infrastructure law. The law made it a felony, punishable by up to 5 years in prison to be on or near a pipeline without permission. Several of us in this space right now were held hostage to that law for 4 years before the statutes of limitations ran out, and they couldn't proceed with the court hearings. This law made it punishable, like I said, by up to 5 years. So to be clear, the law, it's not about safety, it's about protecting corporate profits and silencing those who speak out. Pipelines run under public land, private land, water, and communities. They are often unmarked, invisible, and impossible to avoid. As we know, in Louisiana, we've got over 125,000 miles of pipeline infrastructure crisscrossing our state. This law is deliberately vague so they can use it against anyone, landowners, journalists, and especially those resisting fossil fuel destruction. It's part of a nationwide trend. We've seen similar anti-protest laws in states like Texas, Oklahoma, and South Dakota. The laws are meant to intimidate and punish those who dare to stand up against the fossil fuel industry. The First Amendment and the right to protest. This law is unconstitutional. It violates our First Amendment rights, the right to protest, the right to assemble, and the right to speak out against corporate destruction of our lands and waters. I, along with other water protectors, landowners, and journalists were arrested under this law simply for being present near a pipeline. Before 2018, if I stood in protest, the most they could charge me with was a misdemeanor trespassing, which several of us did get racked up several misdemeanor trespassing laws along the way. But now, because of this law, peaceful demonstrators face felony charges and up to 5 years in prison, like I said. If they can make protecting the land a crime, what does it say about the world we live in? This case matters because it's not just about us that were on the front line. It's about all of us, our families and our communities. If this law stands, it sets a dangerous precedent that allows corporations to rewrite laws to punish anyone who resists them. We term this corporate lawfare. We are here today in court because we refuse to be silent. We demand that this law be overturned. We demand that Louisiana stop criminalizing Indigenous resistance and frontline activism. We demand the right to protect our land, our water, and our future. We need people to pay attention to this case. It matters. This is very important. We need you to stand with us in Louisiana, across the country, and beyond. We need to keep fighting against all fossil fuel infrastructure projects because this isn't just about one pipeline. It's the future of our planet, indeed. Mother Earth, Unchimaka. Join us in demanding an end to the criminalization of protest, support Indigenous-led resistance, defend the right to protect the land and the water. This is not just a legal fight, it's a movement. Water is life, land back. This case is about justice, it's about our rights, and it's about the generations to come. We won't stop fighting. We can guarantee you this. We will not stop fighting. From Standing Rock to the Bayou, our resistance continues. Miniwi Choni, water is life. Thank you so much for coming to support our effort today. And I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic on to our amazing attorneys today. She did an amazing job in the courthouse. Her name is Asta. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. My name is Asta Sharma Pokhrill. I'm an attorney at the Center for Constitutional Rights. We were in court today challenging, as Ann said, the critical infrastructure law that makes it a felony that transforms virtually the entire state of Louisiana into a critical infrastructure where you can be subjected to a felony for essentially being at the wrong place at the wrong time And as Anne said, this was a statute that is dangerous for many reasons, and especially dangerous because it was passed for the purpose of silencing movements and communities who are speaking out in opposition to pipelines. We're feeling good about how things went in court today, and I think I'll just say one thing about it, which is that the judges were asking the right questions, and the Attorney General and the other defendants didn't have the right answers. And if there was a single question that any of the defendants should have had a good answer to, it's the question that the judges were asking, and they did not have the answer. And their failure to answer this simple question that is at the heart of the case proves our point. So we're feeling hopeful, and I think I'll end there and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, and thank you for our whole team at the Center for Constitutional Rights for an amazing job to support us against this fight. I'd like to ask Cherie Foytlin to please come and say a few words. If you don't know Cherie, you know, she's a badass. She's a matriarch of our movement. I'm so glad to have her here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann and me and a few other Indigenous women started the camp, and it was 7 miles from my house. And so some of the waterways that we were concerned about would directly affect us. And I had been to Standing Rock because I always supported environmental issues, and I had been there and I saw the beautiful way that people were standing up in prayer and joy and song. And we didn't want to repeat that here. We wanted to bring the people here together to show that we matter. We stinking matter. I got 6 kids, and honestly, I ain't gonna give them a darn thing. I don't have anything except for this great earth that I feel like as Indigenous people, we were put in charge of protecting and caring for. And if we can't pass on clean water and clean air, clean land to our babies, then I don't even know why we're here. I don't know what we're doing. The problem is we were David and the companies are Goliath. And what's happening on the federal and state courthouses across the country right now is Goliath is winning. Goliath is winning, and he's winning because they're taking away our stones. You know, we can hold that weapon as hard as we want, but if we don't have anything legal to put into it to protect us, if they take that away from us, then we are fighting with just our hands. And that's what they're trying to do to us with this case. They're taking away our chance to say that we matter. So we can't let that happen. But I'm gonna keep it short today. I just want to say something that actually James Baldwin said, because it always makes me think about this case and the whole water protector movement. And that is that love does not begin and end the way we seem to think that it does. Love is a battle. Love is a war. Love is growing up. And that's what we were forced to do. We had to grow up real quick and decide what was going to be important to us. Love is a battle, and we're going to battle on. It didn't end with Andeloy La Vie. It didn't end when Bayou Bridge put that pipe in the ground, and it won't end until the day I pass and my children pick up that weapon and take those rocks and carry on. And I'm going to make sure they have every rock in their arsenal that's possible.
Thank you, Cherie. We all wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you getting us all moving. So sure appreciate you. We owe a lot of this work to your sacrifice and leadership, really. We have several people we'd like to bring on. Our next speaker is from the Louisiana Bucket Brigade. As you might know, they were one of the original plaintiffs to this case. They were dropped early on. The organizational plaintiffs were dropped in this case early on, basically because, if I understand it right, the 3 remaining plaintiffs were arrested and directly affected, and while the organizations were affected, their rights to the amendment, to the First Amendment and free speech was quelled. They were affected, but they weren't directly arrested like some of us, like the dozen of us that were taken under and charged with the felony protest law. So I'd like to welcome Chloe Jobin to come and speak as an organization. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chloe Jobin. I'm from the Louisiana Bucket Brigade. I just wanted to say thank you all so much for being here. It's an honor to be here and to be in all of your presence. One of the judges in the case asked, what does a pipeline company have anything to do with this? And I think that's kind of a silly question to ask because the person who wrote this law is actually now the head of the Department of Natural Resources. So it kind of seems like maybe there's a connection there. It seems like there's an agenda there and that people are being pretty strategic about what we are and are not allowed to do. So just wanted to point that out. I feel like that's an important thing to note. I do also want to mention, it seems to me like this is effective, otherwise they wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep us from being able to do it. So I think it's kind of a green flag that it's something that they're trying to take away from us. It's a green flag that that's something that we need to keep doing because they want to suppress it so bad. It's because it's how they lose. And I think that it seems like maybe they're a little bit scared of our power and what we can do when we all unite, and they should be. So I think that that's something to note as well. I also think that it's important to note that freedom of speech is not selective. You don't get to have it sometimes and then not have it others. When we are fighting for our freedom of speech, that is 100% of the time, and there are not stipulations on that. So I think it's important that people realize that maybe it's not just, you don't get to just pick and choose how that works. I also wanted to just say thank you so much to the Indigenous leaders for being here, for leading this charge, for, you know, showing us what needs to be done and for taking us through this process. We rely so heavily on your knowledge and your leadership here. So thank you so much for all of your work and for pushing us forward. And thank you all for showing up for each other. It's an honor for me to be here and show up for you. And we got to keep showing up for each other. So let's keep going. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Chloe. Appreciate y'all. Next, I want to introduce one of the journalists who is a plaintiff in the case. Her name is Karen Savage. And boy, I tell you what, if it wasn't for Karen, we wouldn't be here either. She got our story out. She stuck it out with us out in the bayou and the swamps. So she also has a really wonderful podcast called, well, you'll have to tell me again or just let folks know what the podcast is, because I think everyone should take a listen to it. It's a very powerful story. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Ann. It's so good to be here, and I have to say, first of all, it was an honor, and one of the highlights of my career is to be able to report from the swamp and report on everything that was happening during that time. And as a reporter, you know, one of our very basic things is we need to operate within the law. So I really tried to do that. I had people who advised me how to do that. But the thing is that this law is so vaguely written, so confusing, that not only did the people who I trusted and who have a good track record of giving good, solid information get it wrong, but the oil company also got it wrong. And so if people whose profession it is to get it right can't get it right, then there's a problem not with those people, but with the law. And so, you know, and it was used in a way that was intended to prevent me from reporting. And that is honestly a First Amendment right. And that is and one of the things that this country is built on is that we have freedom of the press. Freedom of the press to report when water protectors are behaving peacefully and operating within the law and doing everything they can to get their voices heard, and they're met with police repression. They're met with corporate abuse. You know, that's what press is for. That's what I want to continue to be able to do. I was arrested once. I was arrested then a second time. And those things really did chill my ability to report. You know, 2 felonies outstanding for 4 years is a huge thing that got in the way of me continuing to report. And part of the reason I'm a party to this lawsuit is because I don't want that to happen to any other reporter. So that's basically why I'm here. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all, Bill Quigley, Pam Spees, all the wonderful people at the Center for Constitutional Rights. Without you guys, you are the real heroes. If you were the one up there speaking today, or you were the one doing research some Friday night at 7 at night, you are our heroes. So thank you.
Oh yeah, name the podcast.
The podcast is, I don't remember what episode it is, but it's Drilled News. And there's an entire season on the repression of the right to protest. And it covers, internationally. And the episode that I was part of covers the adventures of reporting on Bayou Bridge. And it was just an honor, like I said, to have been able to be there. So, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please take a minute to listen to the podcast. Like I said, it's a very powerful story about some of the things that she witnessed out there on our behalf. Next, we have, Meg Logue, yay. Meg, she's with an organization called 350 New Orleans, and she can tell you her story, and they were right there with us all along at the with this fight, and so I'd like to bring Meg up and she can share her story. Thanks, Meg.
Thank you, Anne. Hello, everyone. My name is Meg Logue, and I am with 350 New Orleans. We're a volunteer climate and environmental justice organization. And today I want to tell you the story of the time that I was arrested back in end of February 2018. It was the first arrest along the Bayou Bridge pipeline route, and as far as we know, the first environmental justice-related civil disobedience arrests in Louisiana. We were arrested in Belle Rose, and I was personally charged with 4 misdemeanors for trespass, 2 counts of resisting arrest, which I maintain was the mud, not me. Which, mind you, was their fault for operating heavy machinery when they should not have been after such serious rain. And the 4th count was for remaining after being told to leave. Now, because this was the first round of arrests, what we were able to do was we got offered a diversion program by the DA, and we had to take a responsible decision-making class. So you are looking at a certified responsible decision maker. And I will just say, this was a responsible decision-making class in Assumption Parish, where the person who was leading this class basically said, if you make a responsible decision, if you have assessed the situation, you have assessed the potential consequences, and you have decided that the risks are worth the potential costs. And she asked if any of us felt in the room like we had made a responsible decision. So the 3 of us raised our hands, and we got to tell our story to the other people who were there in that room. And she affirmed that we had made a responsible decision in choosing to get arrested that day. So, there's another layer to that story that we can go on another time, but just wanted to share that we are making responsible decisions as water protectors, and we chose to make these decisions to put ourselves at risk of arrest because this is so important, because we recognize that Louisiana especially is a sacrifice zone for the rest of the world, and we have to stand up and fight back against that. And just in contrast, a few months later, several other members of 350 New Orleans were arrested in the same parish, and they did not get the option to take that diversion program. They were prosecuted for their charges. And if we were to take the same action today, the exact same thing, we would be risking a charge that would be a felony instead of a misdemeanor. And that is with absolutely nothing changing. We did not escalate in our actions, but over time, as they learned what we were doing, as they learned why we were there and what we were standing up for, that is when we didn't escalate, they escalated in their response to us. So that is when we started seeing people getting prosecuted for their charges. That's when we started seeing police violence escalate against our water protectors. They brought that violence upon us because we were standing up for something that threatened their power. And Republican Representative Stephen Dwight, at the time that HB 727 was passing through the Louisiana legislature, said that this purpose of this law was to address people who were, quote, protesting the wrong way. And my question would be, who decides what protesting the wrong way is? What does that mean? Is it the same people who decided to assassinate Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And then hold him up as the example of what good protest looks like, while also demonizing those of us who follow in his footsteps? So this law is vague. We've all talked about that. It applies to unmarked pipelines. And, you know, with terrorism laws already on the books and critical infrastructure laws popping up, curiously, only in states that were actively fighting pipelines, and with peaceful resistance, the intent is clear for this law. It was passed to chill protest. It was passed not to protect something that we've had, as many know, for decades, and we never thought it was worth protecting as critical infrastructure until people stood up and said that this is not the future we want for our state. So it is clear, the intent is to chill protest and to protect profit of oil and gas industry. So while the scars of the Bayou Bridge pipeline still mark all the way from Lake Charles through the Atchafalaya Basin, all the way here, while the scars of that fight still mark the water protectors who so bravely fought in the swamps, we know that it's more critical now than ever that we have the sacred right to protest, to defend what we love, to defend clean air, clean water, clean soil. So our resistance is critical, not criminal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Meg. You know, as we witnessed and we're telling the story of this unprecedented stand against the oil and gas industry in Louisiana, we want to also just talk about landowners and the rights that the landowners have. Our camp was on land that our resistance owned the land. We put up a hell of a resistance, and we actually forced them to go around our little chunk of land. So that was like a huge victory and a resistance that had not ever been witnessed here or played out here in Louisiana. And I think that resistance inspired other landowners to do the same thing, to step up and say, no, we're not afraid of you and we don't want you on our land. You can't come through here and tear it up. We're not going to allow you to do that. And one of those landowners is Peter Alstead. He can't be here today. He has written out a statement for us that our friend will read here in a minute. But his land is really key in this movement and then in this case, in fact, because that's where this law centers on how and where they like really arrested us, charging us with trespassing on that land and on the easement. When today we heard in court that it was very clear that the pipeline are the ones who were trespassing. So today's court hearing was very illuminating in a lot of ways, and we're really grateful that this information was able to be shared. So I'd like to invite Nate Smith to read Peter's statement today. He is with Bulbancha Liberation Radio and has offered to read the statement from the landowner, Peter. Thank you, Nate.
Peter Alstead, private landowner on Bayou Bridge route. It's very frustrating for me that I can't be there. Even if my presence wouldn't mean much of anything substantial, it would mean a lot to me. To be connected to my brothers and sisters in Louisiana who seek to resist this ugly encroachment on their rights to be seen and heard. It's more important than ever now, as interest in the gas and oil industry are no doubt emboldened by this country's current leadership and its disdain for the constitutional rights of American citizens. This law puts more power in the hands of out-of-state corporations who have repeatedly demonstrated to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Louisiana and the land itself. Why give crooks more power to do the crooked things? Why would anyone doubt that they wouldn't keep doing business as usual, already criminal and free of oversight, or start doing even worse, since this law is written only for abuse. I take them at their word that they only serve their shareholders, that they value that they value the Afalaya Basin and its people as worthless. Let justice be delivered in New Orleans. Disarm the private corporations who treat Louisiana as a colony. Empower the people of Louisiana with respect for their rights.
Thank you, Nate. Thank you for sharing Peter's testimony with us today. I wanted to, next on our list, to invite Pastor Harry Joseph to come and speak, share some words. He's with Rice St. James, wonderful partner in this work. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, good evening, good evening. I am Pastor Joseph, pastor of Mount Zion Baptist Church in St. James, Louisiana. Also with Rural Roots, Louisiana, where I'm the vice president of Rural Roots, where my daughter is our founder and director. But we are here today because of the Bayou Bridge pipeline, and when all this started, I found all this out in Napoleonville, where Meg them was arrested and all. And I went to a meeting and they said that the Bayou Bridge pipeline was going to end in St. James, Louisiana. So I took it back to the church and said, look, this Bayou Bridge is coming right next door to us. So it's time for us to fight. So I got involved, and I'm just so grateful to meet all these people. I mean, I met them all, and Sherry, one evening she came, she said, let's go to North Dakota. So we went on to North Dakota. So I met a lot of people in North Dakota, and that's where the Bayou Bridge line started at, and then we came back to St. James, and we started a fight in St. James. And I think it was Bow, Louisiana at the time, and we started the fight, and believe it or not, the Bucket Brigade got involved, and here was Reverend Joseph, all over the place telling people about the Bayou Bridge pipeline, telling the plants that was there that we didn't want it, we don't need it, because we have 152 tanks in St. James right now, and they was gonna put up 26 more tanks. And putting up 26 more tanks, my members, Eve Butler and all of them, Eve was diagnosed with cancer, so they wasn't comfortable in St. James. So we fought to get them out of St. James, and they happened to get out of St. James. But with our fight with the Bayou Bridge pipeline, is instilled in me to not just fight for the Bayou Bridge pipeline, to start fighting for everything else, because we love our clean water, we love our clean soil, and we love our clean air. And God gave us these things. And I tell people now, why destroy what God gave us? God gave us clean water, he gave us clean soil, and he gave us clean air. And we as people, we have children, grandchildren, I got great-grandchildren, and I want them to breathe clean air. I want them to be on clean soil. So my fight is not for me, but it's for my children, my grandchildren, and my great-grandchildren. And don't ask me how my daughter got involved with this, because I don't know. But she got involved, and she said, well, Daddy, if you can fight, then I can fight with you. And she started the organization. So we are educating the youth. And that's where we started, educating the youth and trying to deal with the plants that we have in our area to bring down their emissions. So I thank God for all of you, and God bless all of you. And I want to just say thank you to our attorneys. Because they did a great job, a wonderful job. And what I heard today and what I saw, the other side came and answered questions. Because they don't know who the trespassers are. But the judge said it in a nice way. Bayou Bridge pipeline is your trespasser. Because how can you stop me from going on a pipe that is so deep in the ground? If that's the case, we all will be in jail, because we got pipes all over the place. So I thank God that God give it to y'all, and we just appreciate you all, and I do love all of you. And Sherry, I just want to say thank you. The Bucket Brigade, you can tell them I say thank you, because they started me with the fight, and I'm not going to leave out Pam, because me and her, when I go to New York, and I'm headed to New York again, so I'll be in the office again. I done met all the attorneys in the office. Every time I go, I got to make one around. So I just love them, and God bless all of you for doing what you're doing. But I want to let you know, this is not the end. This is not the end, because there are still people that want to destroy what God has given us. And if we don't continue to fight, they're going to do what they have to do, but I'm glad God got a fight in me, because I will not stop until I'm in the grave. And I believe that they got a lot more that will be coming involved. And I just want to say to Meg that we appreciate you, and we do love y'all, and God bless all of you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's wonderful words. I wanted to just quickly acknowledge the resistors before us in the Atchafalaya Basin are some of my mentors. One of my mentors, I'm an herbalist, and I mentored with the late Marcia Gomez, and her father was one of the, she remembers as a small child in the Atchafalaya Basin, and he was out there throwing down with the chemical companies down there that were dumping the chemicals into the Atchafalaya Basin. So he was out there resisting as a Choctaw indigenous person here. So this resistance has been here for a long time. This isn't the first, but we follow in some really strong footsteps. And I just wanted to acknowledge them, because we're here now because of what they did first for us, to lay those paths for us. And I wanted to bring up one of our resistor sisters here, Juanita Locke. She's with the Standing Rock Youth Council, and she's going to share some important news about what's coming up and what she's been doing, and she's been a real inspiration for us and a real support for us, so I'm glad that she's here.
Hamidakiapi, chante washte nape Jewsapi, Winia imachiapi, Iamo hemataha. My name is Winia Locke. I come from Standing Rock. I'm also part of Standing Rock Grassroots. I'm a part of the original women that called out and established Sacred Stone Camp along with LaDonna Allard and Joy Braun and the community members of Cannonball. We have been a thorn in the United States government's backside since 1876. And ever since then, militarization has always been used against our people. In 1876, we call it the Battle of Greasy Grass. You guys know it as the Battle of the Little Bighorn. We wiped out the entire 7th Cavalry. And ever since then, the United States government has been coming after my people for land, water, gold, and now fracking within our sacred hills. So when they talk about militarized policing or standing up or the jeopardy of First Amendment speeches, remember, we were not even federally recognized people until 1976, 78. We were considered non-human. Even though we're historically from the land, even though we taught white farmers how to cultivate the land, even though we taught all the white astrologers how to use our star system. So when they came after us on Standing Rock, and remember, Bismarck, North Dakota deliberately voted down. The Dakota Access Pipeline was not supposed to come within our unceded treaty territory. And that's one of the biggest things that North Dakota and Louisiana and the rest of the United States government doesn't like to acknowledge is unceded treaty territory, meaning that land is ours. Dakota voted it down. A predominantly all-white community did not want a pipeline going through their community. So it was relocated onto our unceded treaty territory. So one of the biggest things is, people are always amazed when I tell them that we technically won the Dakota Access Pipeline fight. The federal court judge ruled in our favor that this pipeline was illegally built and illegally operating right now. And that all the claims that we made were accurate. That the Army Corps and North Dakota pushed through this Dakota Access Pipeline by gunpoint. You never hear talk about energy transfer, talk about the dogs that they used. the water cannons. You never hear them talk about the Avenger missiles that they used. You never talk about them using mercenaries. Tiger Swan was the main mercenary that came into our homelands. You guys formerly know them as Blackwater. So when we talk about militarization, you got to understand that the indigenous people have always been fighting military, right from jump. And right now, we're fighting SES pipeline. It's a carbon pipeline that's following Dakota Access Pipeline. People are wondering, how did you fall into carbon capture? I'm like, well, it's following the DAPL's easement right now. Greenpeace is on trial right now. They started court at 9 a.m. Central in Mandan, North Dakota. They're facing RICO charges, and they're also facing the jeopardy of the First Amendment. It's really interesting that Harvard law students, Cornell law students, Stanford law students are all making their way to Mandan and Bismarck, North Dakota. But they won't allow a live stream of this hearing. Freedom of speech is in jeopardy, not just in Louisiana, not just in North Dakota. It's straight across this nation. And we need every person available, mind, body, and soul, to stand up for basic human rights. It's a human right to have clean air and clean drinking water, because that's what we were protecting on Standing Rock, is 10 million people's drinking water. And we were unarmed. And we organically grew. It's really frustrating when you see NGOs claim status and like, nope. Look at their original photos. It was a community that cared. It was a community led by women. It was a matriarch-led movement. So when I say that Dakota people have always been a thorn in the United States government, and they have always sent military after us, even in 2016, 18, 19, 2020, 2023, 2024, 2025. That's present day. Sitting Bull once said, all I wanted was peace. I prayed for peace. There's been battles, and when the white people win, they call it a victory. But when we win, it's called a massacre.
Thank you, sister. Well, it looks like that's the end of our speakers for our press conference and our little rally today. And I wanted to just, again, thank everybody for coming to support this very important case and hearing today. And I wanted to acknowledge again our amazing attorneys here. Bill Quigley's in the house, y'all. Let's just give it up for Bill Quigley. Yes, indeed, yes. Pam Spees, yes. Love y'all. Center for Constitutional Rights always got our back. Travis is here in the house. Hey. Made it up from Donaldsonville. Yep. So, yeah, I just wanted to, in the closing, just to say thank you to all of our speakers for helping to share the broader story of what happened behind the scenes here at what's happened behind this case. I think it's very important to hear all of the voices. So with that, again, say Wopila. And if there are any questions, we'll be around. So go ahead and, do that. And thank you all for holding up these beautiful artwork. We had our friends from 350 who, actually from one of the crews, the Box of Wine crew. Let's give it up for them for making our signs today. Awesome. Heidi's Tacos came through with some good food for us. Give it up for Heidi's Tacos, local catering. Yes. And yeah, I think that's about it, y'all. Thanks so much for showing up. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up.